God, Mum, you're not on Tinder.
Most people call it plenty of fuck.
We're going to make you a profile.
The Playing with Matches podcast, where women talk about their experiences dating online. Hello, I'm Mark, and this is Playing with Matches, the podcast where women talk about their online dating experiences. This is episode number 14. Oh, go on then, quickly. There are 14 pounds in a stone and 14 days in a fortnight. February the 14th is St. Valentine's Day. A woodlouse has 14 legs arranged as 7 pairs. That's quite cute. The flag of Myanmar, formerly Burma, has 14 stars representing its 14 states. In numerology, number 14 is often associated with adaptability, resourcefulness, and independence. It carries the energy of transformation and encourages you to embrace change fearlessly. When you see the angel number 14, it's a reminder that you have the inner strength to overcome any obstacles in your path. An angel number, by the way, apparently, is a number that you are being sent by the universe. For example, every time you look at a clock, it might say the same time or contain the same numbers. 14 minutes past 2 in the afternoon, for instance. There you go. I'm certainly no expert in such matters, so please feel free to get in touch if I'm walking down the wrong spiritual path on that one. Well, I hope our episode number 14 gives you inner strength. Failing that, I hope you are entertained at least. Today we meet Manisha. She was interviewed, as most of our guests were, during the lockdown, and on interviewing duty is Denise and Joanna. So thanks to them as always. And while we're on the thank you to Elle for her help with the editing. So Manisha is one of our younger interviewees, and as such she is suspicious of a match who doesn't have a social media profile. Instagram preferably. Facebook's best left to the boomers. That's me saying that, not Manisha. She also says you should not go out with her if you don't love Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I've never seen the show. A quick Google told me it's a critically lauded US comedy show set in a fictional New York police department. Manisha talks a lot about brown boys. To put that into context, for those who don't know, brown is a term that has been adopted by people with a light to moderate brown complexion to distinguish themselves from other, more generic racial identifiers, typically but not restricted to the South Asian community. And Manisha mentions that while she began by dating white boys on apps, she found it easier in the end to communicate with people with a cultural background that has more in common with her own. Less need to explain the differences, they just get it, she says. So I'll now step off the eggshells and walk you into the interview. Manisha begins by talking about the dating app Hinge, which rather than having a full bio description, it feeds you certain prompts, and she tells us about some of those. As always, I'll be back at the end for herbal tea and humble pie. Until then, take it away, Manisha.
I'm not too sure if you're aware of the setup of Hinge, how it's like, so that's the main one I use, and how it's like it's got prompts rather than like a straight up bio. You should not go out with me if you don't love Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Absolutely adore that show, and I feel like it's a very top level standard that I have for people. And one thing I'll never do again is date a Tory. I am clearly a very strong liberal and I hold that very highly. So obviously a Tory is quite on the opposite end of the spectrum to that. That did not work out well. I did have on one of my other accounts from a while back, I had a different bio, which was basically, it was just like a snippet of like a specific Brooklyn Nine-Nine episode. So it was Brooklyn Nine-Nine, season 1, episode 7, 7 minutes and 27 seconds. And it was basically just a clip of Jake Peralta, the detective, just screaming. And I was like, I feel like that really encompasses my mindset about things. So I first downloaded Tinder actually when I started as a fresher at uni. So that was within like the first couple of weeks. It was purely like, initially it was purely just like banter reasons between me and my flatmates. It does quite grasp your attention. It is quite interesting, just constantly swiping. And I was at, so the university I was at, it was quite a high ratio. So it was like 60% male, 40% female, or 70-30. The ratio was really high. So obviously there was a lot of different guys on Tinder. So I was just like, why not? Let's just have a scroll. And I feel like because it was like my first slight bit of freedom as well, I was like, let's just go crazy, see what happens. I mean, I can't say it was very useful, as a lot of the guys were typically rugby lads, and that's not specifically my type. So I can't say that I had a good a really good like encompass from my university experience with it. Well, not in first year anyway. But yeah, so that was the first time that I downloaded a dating app. And so that was 2015. And unfortunately, 6 years on, I'm still on them. Love that for me. During my first year of university, I was very adamant that I was never going to be interested in an Indian guy or a brown guy, just because of the culture and how quite strong most Indian mums are over their sons. I was just like, I cannot be bothered to deal with that. That is not my cup of tea, not what I want to do. Don't have the patience. My taste changes quite a bit, but it kind of remained in the same ballpark of they just have to be able to debate me. So I'm quite a sarcastic person. If I can't be sarcastic and they cry or they get upset or they don't give me sarcasm back, I just get bored. So they have to be able to give me a bit of banter. Typically taller. Most of the guys I've gone for in the past, well, during first year of uni were they were white, dark haired. I don't think I went for anyone who was blonde or anything. Yeah. And then from like my third year of university, that completely did a change. And now it's like, I want to be with a brown boy. I need to be with a brown boy because they just get it. They understand the culture. Everything why I was so against it has completely did a 180. And now I'm just like, nope, it works. I need to be with a brown boy. I can't say it's stemmed to anything further than a couple of dates. That is mainly because I think it's just because of my age. So I'm 23, and of course, most guys my age are at that age where they just want to still just sleep around, hook up culture, and I feel like I've reached that limit where I'm just like, can't really be asked with that. Not really interested. And then so I was just like, okay, I don't think it's going to be successful just because of my age and the typical nature of a brown guy around this age. So I was just like, okay, I'll take my losses with it for now. This is a long story. I'll try and cut it down a little bit. So in first year of uni, I actually matched with this brown guy, but his name, I'm going to keep his name anonymous. His name wasn't typically an Indian name. So I was very taken. I was quite shocked by it. So it really intrigued me. I was like, okay, I'll match with you. So we spoke a little bit, but he ended up being really, really boring. So I was just like, okay, I'm just going to leave you here because you are really boring me right now. And then a couple of years later, he popped back up. He just randomly messaged me when I was doing my year abroad in Spain and was like, hey, how are you doing? And I was just like, well, I didn't actually have his number saved, so I had to ask who it was first. So that was awkward. And then found out who it was, and I was just like, oh shit, oh, I remember you. And he clearly become a lot more interesting over the couple of years. He was like my culture. So I'm Punjabi. He was also Punjabi. And I don't know, it's like we got on really well. And then when I came back from Spain, he was in the same year as me at uni as well. And I was just like, I actually enjoy spending time with you. I actually like you now. And that's when I was just like, oh no. And I think just like having that develop from a friendship into me liking him was definitely, I think we connected over the fact that we were both Indian and we both understood the culture. And I think that's what made the U-turn happen, because I was just like, it's just easy. I don't need to explain things. I don't need to go into detail or say why something can't happen or explain something else. It was just, they just got it. I've always been very, very liberal. I wouldn't class that I am definitely a solid Labour supporter, but I'm definitely liberal. So I was talking to this Tory on Hinge, didn't know he was a Conservative member, and then was like, oh, add me on Instagram. So I was like, okay, yeah, sure. So we were getting on really well. He had like ticked all the boxes where he was like really banterous. He had good conversation. He was able to give back that sarcasm that I was giving. So I was like, okay, we are getting on quite well. And then I was scrolling through his pictures. Of course, why wouldn't you? And then I saw all of like his like active campaigning for the Conservative Party. I was like, okay, interesting. Like, I wonder what level of Conservative you are. That matters as well. And then I found out that he actually, like, so his form of employment is working in the House of Commons for a Conservative MP, who is a stricter Conservative MP. And then I obviously messaged him. I was just like, oh, you're a Conservative. That's not going to work. I was just straight out honest. I was just like, yeah, not my cup of tea. And then he was like, oh, we've been getting on so well. At least give me the benefit of the doubt. So I was like, oh, you've caught on my being nice. So I was like, okay, fine. So we went out on a date. And To be fair, the date wasn't too bad. We tried to avoid politics. We avoided politics talk. Well, I actively tried to avoid politics talk. It was what happened after the date. He basically commented on one of my stories on Instagram where I was supporting Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is obviously a very democratic, feminist politician in America. And he was basically insulting her from my story and basically saying how feminism isn't needed because females are treated equally, all of that. And I'm a very strong feminist. So I was just like, oh no. So literally, so I was just like, oh dear Lord. So it was basically a very big argument between us over Instagram direct message where he was insulting feminism. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't do this. And then a couple of days later, it was the same principle where he was saying how so this was back in September, so just after the Eat Out to Help Out scheme and all of that, and the cases were rising again for COVID. And then he was like, oh yeah, the NHS have all the money that they need. There's nothing, I can see your faces now like, oh my God. Yeah, and I was just like, I literally was sat there and I was shocked. I was sat there and I was just like, what planet are you on? Like, genuinely, what planet are you on? Like, do you not read the news? Like, even if you're like brainwashed in the comments, do you not see what's on the news? And I was just like, wow, like, what was I actually thinking? So I was just from then, I was like, okay, you're not getting a second date. I can't do this. I was like, wow, we are two very different ends of the spectrum here. Not going to happen. Bearing in mind how active he is with the Conservative Party, he actually didn't put his political leaning on his app. So I make it a very active thing that when I'm scrolling through guys, I look at their political beliefs. And if I even see moderate, I'm just like, no, it has to be a liberal, not even moderate. It has to be straight out liberal. Otherwise it's a straight X to the left. So I found it quite ironic that he hadn't put his political leaning on there, but at least I found out pretty soon. Out of all my friends, like, I am the one who puts political standing very high on my list of like expectations on a guy. Where I was talking to one of my friends who was like, oh, I've matched with someone on a dating app, and I was just like, oh, have you like seen what their leaning is? And they were just like, oh, I don't look at that. And I was just like, oh, what do you mean you don't look at it? She was just like, I don't really care. And I was just like, I guess it's just personal preference, and I'm quite active in politics and she isn't, so I guess it tailors in that sense. Not all of them successful, but I have gone on my fair share of dates. I think most of the time the app has like talking over message. My like the picture I create in my head of the guy has been quite accurate, which is quite lucky because I cannot say that that's the same for everyone. But I guess that I've just go for this similar type of guy, so it doesn't alter too much. And I guess I'm quite picky in the sense that if I don't feel like the conversation's actually going to go anywhere within like the first two messages, I just stop talking, which is quite mean. It is a quite mean approach to go, but at the same time, I'm like, why am I going to waste my time? I'm going to waste my time and I'm going to waste your time. So my favourite conversation starter was a guy at uni, my last year of university, where this was on Tinder. And my bio back then was, my favourite animals are alpacas. So my bio back then was, tell me the difference between an alpaca and a llama. And his first message, so we matched, and then his first message to me, he clearly Googled and copied and pasted it, like the difference between an alpaca and a llama. And I was just like, actually, that's a really, like, even though it's something so simple as Googling it and copying and pasting it, he was the first guy to do that. And by that point, like, that bio had been up for a while and everyone else just like, hey, how are you? And I was just like, oh, great, another boring starter. But his was actually quite different. And I was just like, oh, this is nice. This is a quite good one. So we did end up actually talking for a while, meeting up. And then I ended up like kind of seeing him throughout the whole of that year at uni. So not too shabby. I think the biggest thing is probably how guys rank their height and how honest they are with their height. I get why. I get why guys are really insecure about their height. It's like it's a very societal thing, all of that stuff. And obviously it's like the notion that girls aren't going to go for short guys, which I hate that it's like that's the thing which can put a girl off. And I can't say that I'm an anomaly to that, because the guy does have to be taller than me if I'm wearing heels in my mind. And I'm quite short, so I'm 5'2". So if they're like 5, so my average heel height is like 5, is 4 inches. So they have to be taller than 5'6" or 5'7" really. And guys they are more likely to lie about their height. So I went out with one guy, said that he was 5'8", met, and I was like, you're not 5'8". I was like just slightly shorter than him, and I was just like, oh no, you really did. And immediately that made me backtrack everything. Like the immediate second of meeting him, he'd already lied about his height, so I'd already put that I'd already put that date in the bin and that guy in the bin, essentially, because I was like, if you lied about that, what else have you lied about? But again, I get why it's done. I get why the lies are done. But all in all, I think honesty about like what guys put on anything else what guys put on their bio I haven't noticed too many lies. They are quite honest. And then I guess it's like they're putting themselves in their bio as well, like the same way I am. Like I'm very much like, I'm a sarcastic person. I will be sarcastic in my bio. And if you don't like that, then you will swipe X. And I guess guys are doing the same thing as well, which is understandable. I have found myself quite a lot of times getting to really know a guy, and I don't want to blame it on like astrology, but I'm a Pisces, so I do get attached. If I get attached very quickly. And there has been quite a few times when I have gotten attached to a guy and they're like, oh, I'm not looking for anything serious. This was a kind of pure example was the guy who I met at university with the alpaca thing. So we had gone on quite a few dates, and it was like romantic stuff as well. So I was just like, oh, this is positive. And then he texts me, like, arranging another date, and he was just like, oh, by the way, I'm really not looking for anything serious. And I'm just sat there, like, at this point, we've been on, like, 4 dates, and I'm just like, what do you mean? It'd been, like, over quite a few months, and I was just like, where did this come up from? Like, why did you not tell me this from the start? Because now I'm upset, but I'm going to do nothing about that because I want to continue talking to you. I'm just going to make myself even more upset. What annoys me is how... So each dating app has its kind of like vibe, I guess. So Tinder is obviously your ones which you go on there for casual hookups. Bumble, I guess it's quite in between because it like you can choose and say whether you're looking for something serious or if you're looking for casual. And then typically seen that Hinge is the one for proper relationships. But again, there are quite a lot of guys on Hinge who I've come across who have been getting on really well with, who have said, I'm not looking for anything serious. And I just want to turn around and say to them, you're on the wrong app. But at the same time, who am I to say that to them? So I'm just like, okay, I'm going to back away from this then because I'm not in the market for just a casual hookup. I can't be bothered for hookup culture. Like I completely get people who are, but I'm not that type of person. If you're just looking for a casual hookup, just say it from the start. Saves everyone a lot of time. And I think I'm just a very awkward person. So I quite like knowing something about someone a little bit beforehand. So I guess that's why the apps are pretty handy, because I can kind of gauge the type of person, gauge the conversation style, because sometimes that doesn't happen if you go immediately on a first date with someone who you haven't really spoken to. So none of the dates I went on, not from apps, have been successful. I think dating via apps has just become the norm, especially during COVID. Like you can't go out and meet people, and it's been going on for almost a year now, and most likely going to carry on for who knows how long. And prior to this, my work schedule and how I worked, it was quite awkward hours. So I would start at 11 and finish at 8. And obviously you can't meet someone if you finish at 8 o'clock. And my working week would be on a Tuesday and I would finish on a Saturday. And those are obviously Friday and Saturdays are prime days to go out into London, go out into bars. So of course that was something that I wasn't able to do. So dating via an app, or meeting guys anyway from an app, was the easiest route. Genuinely, I don't think any of my friends who are in relationships met their significant other in like day-to-day life. I honestly genuinely cannot think of a couple who haven't met via an app. So it is pretty much the way forward for dating. I mean, I wish it wasn't. Like the whole romantic scene of someone buying you a drink from across the bar has always been like quite cute. Oh my God. And then your hands meeting when you're crossing them over. Oh, it's so cute. But that doesn't happen. They're all in movies and books and TV shows, and it's not real life anymore. So I did like a really stupid calculation because I was bored and lonely. And so I was like, let me work out how many people I've probably matched with on average since I downloaded the apps. And it worked out, it was like near enough, like it hit that 1,000th mark. And I was just like, that's really sad that I've gone through like 1,000 matches and I'm still very single. But also it was like, out of all of those matches, I probably only spoke to less than a quarter of them. So of course there's like so much choice, but whether that choice is immediately narrowed down, like you might swipe right for someone and then if you match, immediately regret it. Oh my God, I sound like such a horrible person. Yeah, so I guess there is a lot of choice, but it does get narrowed down very, very quickly and very easily. Physical attraction is the first thing. I feel like sometimes, so especially on Hinge, so you get a notification if someone has liked you, so you don't have to like back to know. I feel like at times I am quite like, okay, you're not my usual type, but I will give you the benefit of the doubt. So I'm like, let me put my niceness factor in here. I'm usually correct. I don't know what it is about my gut feeling, but I am usually correct that they're not my usual type and they do end up being someone who I wouldn't continue talking to. But it does suck that it is quite a lot of it is based on physical appearance, because obviously then you have to choose like the best pictures, and obviously the best pictures of you on the app aren't going to be what you look like every single day of life, which is quite misleading sometimes. But I guess that's definitely a male and female perspective, like you're going to choose the best pictures. And I guess you just have to notice that you're going to have to take that when you meet the person in real life. You're just going to have to take that with a bit of a pinch of salt. They might not be the exact same, like not a catfish, but they'll have slight differences. So I matched with someone around beginning of December. We were talking for a bit and then it reached the point like, so I am quite active in the sense that I kind of want to see what you look like send me a selfie. I kind of want to see if your pictures match up and to see if I am being catfished. So there was this guy who he just looked completely different to his pictures. And then I was immediately like, well, the conversation wasn't as active, but I was like, again, I'll give the benefit of the doubt. And then he sent a selfie and he looked completely different to his pictures. And I was just like, oh, not different person, different. Could tell that the pictures had not been updated. They had chosen pictures from a while back, and which is quite annoying because obviously people do change over the years, but just choose your active pictures if that's the case. I quite like sending really stupid pictures of myself, so I will send really close up pictures of my face because that's genuinely what I do. To my friends as well, I do actively send stupid pictures. It's quite sad because one of the guys who I was seeing for about 7 months, I sent like those stupid pictures to, and he was like, you shouldn't send pictures like that. They don't make me attracted to you. And I'm just like, shut up then. Goodbye. Red flag. Immediately gone in the bin. Literally, I was just like, I'm not going to take that feedback on, but thank you for saying it. So all of my pictures, I have a mixture on my dating app. So I have like non-makeup pictures of, so I look very different when I have straight hair and curly hair. So I do try to acknowledge that that's a really big issue and try to combat it as much as I can on my own profile. And also their voice, I don't know why, but I'm very attracted to a guy's voice. So I always, again, try to get them to send me a voice note so I can see what their voice is like. I think you actually can do that on Hinge. I think there's like an option for you to upload a video. I haven't personally done it myself. I actually find it quite cringy when people upload a video of themselves. I don't understand why, because it actually makes a lot of sense to upload a video of yourself. But I guess it's like, for me, it's just like, oh, now I need to click play and actually watch a video. And I guess with dating apps, the premise of it is that it's so quick, it immediately puts me off because I'm so lazy. So I'm just like, no, I can't be bothered to do it. So I'll just base everything off their pictures or off what they're saying rather than actually watching the video, which is a pretty bad idea. Maybe I will change that. A lot of the brown boys profiles that I come across, there are quite a few, whether they're pictures or videos, it's like the generic stereotype that brown boys quite like to do shisha. And so blowing the smoke into the camera and taking a picture of it and then uploading that. And for me, if I immediately see one of those pictures, I'm like, X, cannot be bothered with that. I'm like, you are basic. I don't need that in my life. I am not basic. A lot of the apps now, you don't even have to give your number out. Like you can video call on the app. But then it's the same point, like I would not video call someone if I'm not comfortable with them. So I'm a very awkward person. I need to warm up to someone before I decide to video call them. So if I'm having a video call with someone, by that point, they're probably most likely going to have my number. One of the funny ones is that me and my friend are obviously pretty similar, close in age. And we both have a kind of similar ballpark of what our type is. So the same ethnicity, kind of things in that sense. And so I matched with this guy. I'd actually matched with him about 4 times across a year. We'd clearly like deleted and then rematched with each other. And then it got to the point, so I ended up finally going on a date with him in December, because we were both just like, I feel like we should actually like give this a go now, because we've matched quite a few times. I was quite hesitant to it just because he was about 5 years older than me, and I was cautious that I was going to notice that age gap. It turned out that I did notice an age gap, but it was the sense that he acted like he was 14 and I was the older one. So I was like, oh God. So I was like, not the one I was expecting, but it is what it is. So me and my friend obviously have our age set at the similar range, same type of guy we both look for. And he ended up matching with my friend a couple of weeks later. Luckily, my friend, like, we share quite a lot. So she was like to me, like, sent me a screenshot and was like, is this the same guy you went on a date with? I was like, yeah. I was like, you can't match him. That's going to be weird. So I ended up texting him. I sent him the screenshot from my friend's phone, and I was just like, she's not going to match with you, not because of you, but because of me, just letting you know that. And then he was just like, oh, that's really weird. And I was just like, it actually is really weird. And it's not even the fact that that's the first time it's happened. So my cousin also matched with a guy who I also matched with, and I was like, and that's happened quite a few, again, like my cousin's age range is quite similar to mine. But the day before I was meant to see him, I like messaged my cousin, because we're quite close as well. Hold on, like I was telling her about like his personality and stuff. She was like, hold on a second, is this the same guy that? Then she was just like, send me a picture of him. So I did, and she was just like, she just burst out laughing, and I was like, oh no. That was like my first experience that my cousin can also match with the same guys as me. So I was just like, that's quite annoying, because then it's like I have to be cautious of whether my family or my friends have come across the same guys, which is quite annoying. I don't know whether it's because I'm just a very awkward person, but I just couldn't shake it. I'm just like, even if like they didn't even meet up, I'm just like, no, I find it strange. You've spoken to my friend, you've spoken to my cousin. I don't really like it. I'm not going to lie to you. It's awkward in the end as well, because it's just like, are you like comparing my chat to my friend, seeing which one's the funnier friend, seeing which one's like got more banter? And I'm just like, I don't have the time for that. I can find a guy who hasn't matched with my friend. See, now, I thought I couldn't be a matchmaker. I can't be a match for my family, whether they're close relative or distant relative, but I'm pretty good when it comes to my friends. So one of my friends, she's been with her boyfriend now for about 5 years, and she met him on an app, but she was very hesitant to, just from his like profile and everything. And so we actually thought that he was a catfish at first, just because we did like the whole Google backtrace thing to see like where the pictures come from, because we couldn't find this guy's social media anywhere. And by this point, they were talking for quite a while. And I was like, I find it really weird that I can't find his profile anywhere. Like, is this guy made up? So we like backtraced all like the Google pictures to see if we could like find him. And then we couldn't. So I was like, oh my God, this guy's a catfish. This is not going very well with my story about me being a matchmaker, but it makes sense in the end. Where I think this guy's a catfish. But when finally found his profile, he confirmed that he wasn't a catfish. And by this point as well, like they hadn't even met yet, but he knew who I was. And he knew that I had Google backed his pictures to find where they were like found from. And clearly he isn't taken back by how crazy his now girlfriend's best friend is, which is quite lucky. I think I'd like to say that my helping hand really pushed her to actually like take a step out of her comfort zone and go on this date with a guy who I really liked for her, and she liked him, but I don't think she was as comfortable with the whole dating situation at that point. And she'd been on the app for a while at that point and like matched with this other guy who she quite liked, but again it was like the same premise of just hookup culture, and she again wasn't really into that. She was quite reserved in that sense, and I was just like, no, I have really good faith in this guy, I really think you should go for it. And I've never said that about any guy, because if you ask any of my friends, I will straight out say men are trash, don't bother, there's no point, just leave them. I was like, no, this is a really good one, like definitely go for it. And now they've been together for 5 years, so I'm like, yay, go me. I mean, probably was most likely just them two getting on really well, but I'm going to have my helping hand input in the matter anyway. I always like to check that they've actually got social media. So I guess it's quite handy that quite a lot of the dating apps, you can connect your Instagram to them. I find it really weird that this day and age of people, especially like people around like my age, 23, don't have any social media. I'm just like a bit taken back by that. And then, so I would actively ask, be like, do you have Instagram? More likely Instagram rather than Facebook at this point. And it is most likely a yes. And then in that case, then I will go through their Instagram just to make sure that, again, the pictures match up and there is no catfishing going on. And if I go on a date, I will always find my friends on as well. And I'll get my cousin or my friend or my sister to like actively keep an eye on that throughout the date, because especially if it's a first date, because you never know what's going to happen. And it's quite nice to know that there's a little safety net by tracking your phone. I think the only time I haven't done that is with the alpaca guy. And that was only because I realised after, when I was speaking to one of my other uni friends about him, she actually was pretty good friends with him. So she knew him pretty well. I felt like, oh, okay, if my friend knows you and she trusts that you're not going to murder me, that's fine. I think dating throughout the pandemic has definitely been quite challenging. Mainly because it's just quite demotivating, because you know that you're not able to meet the person. And I guess like even if you're talking to a guy like for quite a while over text and you video chatted and everything, it's still just not the same as meeting up with someone in person. So it's like it reaches that point where it does just get a bit pointless.
So that was Manisha. A lot to think about there. Interesting for me to hear the perspective from someone who began their dating life around the time that these apps really got going. And that she says she genuinely can't think of any couple she knows that haven't met through a dating app. She very sensibly activates Find My Friends when she's on a date so that her family and friends know where she is. I think that's very good advice. Manisha also talked a bit about hookup culture. And I must confess to thinking, is that even a thing? Do we just label everything a culture these days? But I looked it up and it does at least have its own Wikipedia page that says, hookup culture is one that accepts and encourages casual sex encounters, including one-night stands and other related activity, without necessarily including emotional intimacy, bonding, or a committed relationship. It is generally associated with Western late adolescent sexuality, and in particular United States college culture. The term hookup has an ambiguous definition because it can indicate kissing or any form of physical sexual activity between partners. The term has been widely used in the US since at least 2000. It has also been called non-relationship sex or sex without dating. So there you go. It is a thing. And I suspect that since online dating began, it's become even more of a thing. I got the feeling that Alpaca Man had a bit of an impact on Manisha. She mentioned him 3 times, I think. Though I admit to being disappointed that he'd just copied and pasted the difference from Wikipedia or wherever. I think he could have tried to turn it into a joke at least. Though when I did that, it just went terribly on PC, a bit offensive, and would get me in a lot of trouble. So, really? You want me to? Okay, but know that you asked for this. And I also probably wouldn't send this to a stranger, but we're all friends on here, right? So you won't judge me, will you? Okay, so the first thing that came into my head was that he could have said something like, I don't know the difference between an alpaca and a llama, but if we go on a wild picnic, alpaca llama leg if you bring the camel toe. I do apologise, I feel very unclean. In my defence, they are all camelids, so please don't get the hump. Time to reverse out of here the way I came in, very carefully. If you'd like to get in touch with the show to tell me off or give me your camelid puns or about anything related to what we talk about here, then the email address is playingwithmatchespodcast@gmail.com. There's a link for that in the show notes, as well as a link to a video trailer and our Facebook page, so please come and say hi. So that about wraps us up for this week. Until next time, good luck out there and on there. Bye-bye.